Hello, as far as you know, my name is Violet. That's a lie, but Violet. Anyway, so I'm gonna be reading this book by Stephen Crane. Not Ichabod. The Red Badge of Courage. Okay, let's see what happens. I have not read this book, by the way. He was just like, this book is awesome, you should read it. Okay. Chapter 1. The cold passed reluctantly from the earth, and the retiring fogs revealed an army stretched out on the hills, resting. As the landscape changed from brown to green, the army awakened and began to tremble with eagerness at the noise of rumors. It cast its eyes upon the roads, which were growing from long troughs of liquid mud to proper thoroughfares. A river, amber-tinted in the shadow of its banks, purled at the army's feet, and at night, when the stream had become of sorrowful blackness, one could see across it the red, eye-like gleam of hostile campfires set in the low brows of distant hills. Once a certain tall soldier developed virtues and went resolutely to wash a shirt. He came flying back from the brook waving his garment banner-like. He was swelled with the tale he had heard from a reliable friend, who had heard it from a truthful cavalryman, who had heard it from his trustworthy brother. By the way, sorry about that. My reading aloud skills suck. Who had heard it from his trustworthy brother, one of the orderlies at division headquarters. He adopted the important air of herald in red and gold. We're going to move tomorrow for sure, he said pompously to a group in the company street. We're going way up the river, cut across, and come round in behind him. To his attentive audience, he drew a loud and elaborate plan of a brilliant campaign. When he had finished, the blue-cloth men scattered into small, arguing groups between the rows of squat brown huts. A Negro teamster who had been drawing upon a cracker box with the hilarious encouragement of two store soldiers was deserted. I didn't write this. He sat mournfully down. Smoke drifted lazily from the multitude of quaint chimneys. It's a lie! All of it is! A thundering lie! Said another private loudly. His smooth face was flushed, and his hands were thrust sulkily into his trousers pockets. He took the matter as an affront to him. I don't believe this derned old army's ever going to move. We're set. I've got ready to move 8 times in the last 2 weeks, and we ain't moved yet. The tall soldier felt called upon to defend the truth of the rumor he himself had introduced. He and the loud one came near to fighting over it. A corporeal began to swear before the assemblage. He had just put a costly board floor in his house, he said. During the early spring he had refrained from adding extensively to the comfort of his environment because he had felt that the army might start on the march at any moment. Of late, however, he had been impressed that they were in a sort of eternal camp. Many of the men engaged in a spirited debate. One outlined in a peculiarly, if I could talk, lucid manner all the plans of the commanding general. He was opposed by men who advocated that there were other plans of campaign. They clamored at each other, numbers making futile bids for the popular attention. Meanwhile, the soldier who had fetched the rumor bustled about with much importance. He was continually assailed by questions. What's up, Jim? The army's gonna move. What you talking about? Who you know it is? How you know it is? Well, you can believe me or not, just as you like. I don't care a hang. I've never heard that phrase. There was much food for thought in the manner in which he replied. He came near to convincing them by disdaining to produce proofs. They grew much excited over it. There was a youthful private who listened with eager ears to the words of the tall soldier and to the varied comments of his comrades. After receiving a fill of the discussions concerning marches and attacks, he went to his hut and crawled through an intricate hole that served it as a door. He wished to be alone with some new thoughts that had lately come to him. He lay down and on a wide bunk that stretched across the end of the room. In the other end, cracker boxes were made to serve as furniture. They were grouped about the fireplace. A picture from an illustrated weekly was upon the log walls, and 3 rifles were paralleled on the pegs. Equipment hung on handy projections, and some tin dishes lay upon a small pile of firewood. There. A folded tent was serving as a roof. The sunlight without, beating upon it, made it glow a light yellow shade. A small window shot an oblique square of whiter light upon the cluttered floor. The smoke from the fire at times neglected the clay chimney and wreathed into the room, and this flimsy chimney of clay and sticks made endless threats to set ablaze the whole establishment. The youth was in a little trance of astonishment. So they were at last going to fight. On the morrow, perhaps, there would be a battle, and he would be in it. For a time he was obliged to labor to make himself believe he could not accept with assurance an omen that he was about to mingle in one of those great affairs of the earth. He had, of course, dreamed of the battles of his life, of vague and bloody conflicts that had thrilled him with their sweep and fire. In visions he had seen himself in many struggles. He had imagined people secure in the shadow of his eagle-eyed prowess. But awake he had regarded battles of crimson blotches on the pages of the past. He had put them as things on the bygone, with his thought images of heavy crowns and high castles. There was a portion of the world's history which he had regarded as the time of wars, but it, he thought, had been long gone over the horizon and had disappeared forever. From his home, his youthful eyes had looked upon the war in his own country with distrust. It must be some sort of play affair. He had long despaired of witnessing a green-like struggle. Such would be no more, he had said. Men were better or more timid. Secular or religious education had effaced the throat-grappling instinct, or else firm finance held in check the passions. He had burned several times to enlist. Tales of the great movements shook the land. They might not be distinctly Homeric, but there seemed to be much glory in them. He had read of marches, sieges, conflicts, and he had longed to see it all. His busy mind had drawn for him large pictures extravagant in color, lucid with breathless deeds. But his mother had discouraged him. She had affected to look with some contempt upon the quality of his war ardor and patriotism. She would calmly seat herself and with no apparent difficulty give him many hundreds of reasons why he was of vastly more importance on the farm than he was in the field of battle. She had certain ways of expression that told him that her statements on the subject came from a deep conviction. Moreover, on her side was this belief that her ethical motive in the argument was impregnable. At last, however, he had made a firm rebellion against this yellow light thrown upon the color of his ambitions. The newspapers, the gossip of the village, his own picturings, had aroused him to an uncheckable degree. There were in truth fighting finely down there. Almost every day the newspapers printed accounts of the decisive victory. One night, as he lay in bed, the winds had carried to him the clangoring, that's a word I haven't heard, of the church bell, as some enthusiast jerked the rope frantically to tell the twisted news of the great battle. This voice of the people rejoicing in the night had made them shiver in a prolonged ecstasy of excitement. Later he had gone down to his mother's room and had spoken thus. "Ma, I'm going to enlist." "Henry, don't be a fool," his mother had replied. She had then covered her face with a quilt. There was an end to the matter for that night. Nevertheless, the next morning he had gone to town that was near his mother's farm and had enlisted in a company that was forming there. When he had returned home, his mother was milking the brindle cow. 4 others stood waiting. "Ma, I've enlisted," he had said to her diffidently. Diffidently, that's the word. There was a short silence. "The Lord's will be done, Henry," she had finally replied, and had then continued to milk the brindle cow. When he had stood in the doorway with his soldier's clothes on his back, and with the light of excitement and expectancy in his eyes, almost defeating the glow of regret for the home bonds, he had seen 2 years leaving their trails on his mother's scarred cheeks. Still, she had disappointed him by saying nothing whatever about returning with his shield on it. He had privately primed himself for a beautiful scene. He had prepared certain sentences which he thought could be used with touching effect. But her words destroyed his plans. She had doggedly peeled potatoes and addressed him as follows. You watch out, Henry, and take good care of yourself in this here fighting business. You watch out and take good care of yourself. Don't go a-thinking you can lick the whole rebel army at the start, because you can't. You're just one little feller amongst a whole lot of others, and you've got to keep quiet and do what they tell you. I know how you are, Henry. I've knit you 8 pairs of socks, Henry, and I've put it all in your best shirts, because I want my boy to be just as warm and comfortable as anybody in the army. Whenever they get holes in 'em, I want you to send 'em right away back to me, so I can dern 'em. And Alice, be careful and choose your company. Alice, be careful and choose your company. There is lots of bad men in the army, Henry. The army makes 'em wild, and they like nothing better than the job of leading off a young feller like you, and ain't never been away from home much, and has always had a mudder, and learning 'em to drink and swear. Keep clear of them folks, Henry. I don't want you to ever do anything, Henry, that you would be ashamed to let me know about. Just think as if I'm watching you. If you keep that in mind, always, I guess y'all come out about right. That is probably the most southern set of lines I have read. And I've read some southern lines. I read the Kill a Mockingbird. Oh, gotta wrap this up? Okay. Alright, I guess I'll finish off her dialogue. You must always remember her father, too, child, and remember he never drunk a drop of liquor in his life, and seldom swore a cross oath. I don't know what else to tell you, Henry, excepting that you must never do no shirking, child, on my account. If so be a time comes when you have to be killed or do a mean thing, why, Henry, don't think of anything except what's right, 'cause there's many a woman who has to bear up against such things these times, and the Lord'll take care of us all. Don't forget about the socks and the shirts, child, and I've put a cup of blackberry jam with your bundle, because I know you like it above all things. Goodbye, Henry. Watch out and be a good boy. He had, of course, been impatient under the ordeal of his speech. It had not been quite as he had expected, and he had borne it with an air of irritation. He departed feeling a vague relief. Okay, so in my book that is 14, about halfway through the page. There's still about a couple of pages left until the next chapter, but in order to not keep you guys here for too long, I'm just going to cut it short there. So I hope to see y'all next time, and just check out the description for any extra information. Leave a comment down below, maybe like the video, I don't know. He'll tell you what to do, I'm sure, somewhere on the screen. Somewhere. So yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye! So, I was told what this book looks like, and obviously I wanted to try to dress up like it. It probably looks ridiculous, and honestly, I don't care. It's an opportunity to dress up. Don't judge me.